December 5, 1945. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers lift off from Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station in Florida. 14 men aboard. A routine training mission over the Atlantic. They're expected back in 2 hours. They never came back. What followed became one of the most analyzed disappearances in American military history. Flight 19. The case that launched 1,000 Bermuda Triangle books, documentaries, and theories. The Navy declared all 14 men dead. The official explanation settled on pilot disorientation and running out of fuel over open water. But here's what doesn't sit right. The Navy has conducted multiple underwater search operations in that region since 1991. They've found wreckage, Avenger wreckage. And every single time they've said it wasn't Flight 19. So the question isn't whether the planes are down there. It's whether the Navy already knows exactly where they are and has decided, for reasons that are not entirely clear, to leave them there. Let's go back to the beginning. Flight 19 departed at 2:10 p.m. on a clear afternoon. The mission was called Navigation Problem Number 1, a standard triangular route. East toward the Bahamas, north, then back southwest to Fort Lauderdale. The flight leader was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, a combat veteran with over 2,500 hours in the air. He was experienced. He was qualified. And about an hour into the flight, something went wrong with his compass. At 3:40 p.m., a nearby flight instructor picked up Taylor's transmission. Taylor told him he couldn't figure out where he were. He said both his compasses were malfunctioning. He thought he was somewhere over the Florida Keys, which would have put him west of his intended position. But the other pilots in his flight, students on their first long navigation exercise, were confused too. A radio operator at Fort Lauderdale tried to get a fix on their position using direction-finding equipment. The signal was too weak. Then interference came in. The frequency kept cutting out. By 5:50 p.m., Taylor was past command of the flight to one of his students, Captain Edward Powers, but it was too late to matter. The sun had set. The radios were fading. At 7:04 p.m., the last transmission was logged. After that, silence. A rescue aircraft, a TBM Mariner with a crew of 13, launched to search for them. It disappeared too. A ship in the area reported seeing a fireball in the sky at around the same time the Mariner would have been in that zone. The Navy later concluded the Mariner likely exploded in flight, possibly due to a fuel leak ignited by a spark. 13 more men gone. 27 men lost in a single evening. No confirmed wreckage recovered. No bodies. Now, the Navy's official 1945 investigation board initially blamed Taylor for the confusion. His family pushed back hard. A review board later changed the finding to cause unknown. That shift matters. It means the Navy itself couldn't fully explain what happened to a flight of 5 aircraft flown by experienced military personnel in clear weather over a well-traveled stretch of ocean. But here's where it gets complicated. In 1991, a salvage company called Deep Sea Research found 5 Avenger aircraft in about 750 feet of water off Fort Lauderdale. 5 planes, in a cluster. Exactly the kind of formation you'd expect if a flight ran out of fuel and ditched together. The Navy examined the discovery. Their conclusion: the planes didn't match the serial numbers of the Flight 19 aircraft. That finding was accepted and then largely forgotten. But the serial number explanation has a problem. Avenger aircraft were produced in large numbers during World War II. Finding 5 of them together in a cluster, in the exact region where Flight 19 went down, and dismissing them purely on serial number grounds, requires you to believe that another group of 5 Avengers also went down in the same patch of ocean for some other reason. The Navy never explained which aircraft those 5 were, or how they got there. Then in 2020, a documentary crew using side-scan sonar located what appeared to be Avenger wreckage in a different location, also off the Florida coast, at around 600 feet. Again, the Navy was not forthcoming with any official response. So you have at least 2 separate clusters of Avenger wreckage in the search zone. No confirmed identification. And an official position that amounts to, not ours, no comment. Why would the Navy stay quiet? One explanation: is bureaucratic. The process for officially identifying a military crash site, recovering remains, and repatriating them is expensive, legally complicated, and politically sensitive. The families of the 14 men from Flight 19 have been waiting for closure since 1945. If the Navy confirmed a location and then failed to recover remains, or found nothing identifiable, that could be worse than no answer at all. There's also the question of what a confirmed location might reopen. The original investigation blamed Taylor, then walked it back. A full recovery operation would put the case back in front of the public with modern forensic tools, and might produce findings that contradict the official record. That's not a small thing for an institution that still carries the reputation of that investigation. And then there's the simplest explanation of all. The ocean floor off Florida is not a clean, empty space. It's littered with World War II-era wreckage. Dozens of aircraft were lost in training accidents in that corridor between 1942 and 1945. The Navy may genuinely believe that none of the wreckage found so far is Flight 19, and that confirming a wrong site would be worse than confirming nothing. But that explanation requires the Navy to have done thorough, documented analysis of every piece of wreckage, and to have released that analysis publicly. They haven't. The 1991 discovery was addressed in a single brief statement. The 2020 sonar findings got no official response at all. That silence is the thing that keeps this case alive. Charles Taylor's family has spent decades arguing that he was wrongly blamed for the disappearance. His aunt, in the years after the incident, reportedly said the Navy had treated him as a scapegoat because it was easier than admitting the navigation and communication systems in use that day were inadequate. The compasses on those aircraft were known to malfunction in certain atmospheric conditions. The radio direction finding equipment at Fort Lauderdale had documented limitations at range. These were not secrets. They were known problems. If the Navy confirmed a crash site today, those equipment failures would be front and center. And the question of why 14 men were sent out on a navigation exercise with faulty compasses and unreliable radios would become very hard to avoid. There's also the matter of what a confirmed site might mean for the Bermuda Triangle mythology that grew up around Flight 19. The Navy has spent decades quietly distancing itself from the supernatural explanations. Confirming a mundane crash site, 200 miles off the coast in shallow enough water for a recovery operation, would end the mystery. But it would also confirm that the planes were findable all along, that they'd been sitting there for 80 years while the Navy issued statements saying they couldn't be located. That's not a comfortable position for any institution. The 14 men who flew out on December 5, 1945, were George Stivers, Joseph Bossy, Herman Thalander, Bert Ballack, and 10 others whose names were entered into a casualty report and then, in a real sense, handed over to the myth. They became the Bermuda Triangle. They became the proof of something mysterious. Their actual deaths in cold water on a dark evening because of compass failures and bad radio range got swallowed by the story. The Navy's position today is that the location of Flight 19 remains unknown. That is technically possible. But it sits alongside at least 2 documented discoveries of Avenger wreckage in the search zone, no public serial number analysis for the 2020 find, and 80 years of institutional silence on a case that cost 27 men their lives in a single night. The planes went somewhere. The ocean off Florida is not that big. The technology to find them has existed since at least the early 1990s. If the Navy doesn't know where Flight 19 is, it's because they stopped looking. And if they stopped looking, the question is whether that was a resource decision or something else.